friends, welcome back to the channel. I just got back from an incredible 10-day trip to India and I'm here to take you through all of the different things that we did. I got a ton of questions while I was there about safety, about favorite cities, all those kind of things, so we're going to go through all of that together today. I got to visit 3 incredible cities while I was there: Hyderabad, Kochi, and Delhi. So in today's video, I'll be answering some of those top questions, like how safe I felt as a woman traveling in India, some recommendations for first-time travelers to India, and what some of my favorite things were to do while I was there. In case this is your first time on the channel, hi, my name is Megan. I am a millennial wife helping other millennial couples travel more frequently and make the most of their vacation time. From dreamy hotels to dog-friendly adventures, I'm here to help you every step of the way and bring you all the tips for traveling smarter and living bigger. All right, let's get started. First, let's start off by talking about what you need to pack to bring with you to India. If you're planning a trip, there's a few must-haves that made my trip so much easier and so much better. The flight was 14 hours from JFK to Hyderabad, so these things were like literally essential to this trip. A foot hammock is my first recommendation. I am 31 now and my legs are not what they used to be. So I get like really tight in my hips and in my calves. So I used compression socks and a foot hammock, and life-changing. I was in a middle seat for the 14-hour flight and I survived thanks to this $11 foot hammock from Amazon. It's saved in my travel musts that'll be linked in the description so you can access it for yourself. Next, especially as a woman, I would recommend packing like travel Kleenex packs with you, because there is very often not toilet paper in the public restrooms in India. There's lots of bidets in public Indian restrooms, but I just kind of felt uncomfortable with that. 1, as an American who doesn't use a bidet on a regular basis, and 2, for like water safety. So that was something that I needed. I went through 2 of 4 packs of Kleenex, but I was also like handing it out because I was the only one that brought them on that trip. But so necessary. I also brought along some hearty American snacks like Cliff Bars and nuts. You can totally find all of those things in India. Just sometimes if like you're not feeling good or you're in the car for 4 hours. We were in the car on a large bus to the Taj Mahal, 4 hours there, 4 hours back from Delhi. And it was just so necessary to have packed snacks. Also, don't forget a plug adapter. There's a lot of like listings on Amazon that will say that they're universal plug adapters, which includes India, but that's not true. There's a very, very specific plug type for India that most universal chargers do not have because it's not a super common need in your universal charger. Lastly on my list was little alcohol prep pads. It seems silly, but you can get a pack of like 100 for like 14 bucks on Amazon. And it was really good for nausea in the car, especially if you're gonna be on like buses or trains and you're going through like street markets and food vendors and all of that. So I definitely used them when I got car sick. And they also are a great like hand sanitizer alternative. It works faster than hand sanitizer to clean your hands and make sure that you are germ-free when you're ready to eat. So would highly recommend getting a pack of those. Let's also talk a little bit about clothes to pack to India. I was traveling in India in late September, early October. It was still pretty sweltering some days though, so definitely pack modest layers. That seemed to be like the theme of outfit choices for me, was modest layers. I got a couple of CRZ yoga workout tops that are just like t-shirt tops, but they're cropped. They were really breezy and they're athletic materials, so they're like sweat wicking, was really nice. And I wish that I had brought more skirts to pair those with, because I think that would have looked really nice and made me feel put together, but also like not sweaty. Also pack at least 2 pairs of comfortable tennis shoes that you feel like you don't mind getting dirty. So all of these items are linked in the description part of this video on Amazon so that you can order them if you need them for your trip. Oh, and I also went to see a travel nurse before I left to make sure that I had all of my like immunizations in place. I ended up needing a polio booster and a typhoid shot. Some of the people on my trip were also prescribed malaria medication because we were going to be in a more rural, like coastal, tropical area. Seeing the travel nurse also did ease a lot of my like travel anxiety beforehand, to have them explain, especially like rules for like food and ice and what to eat, what not to eat, and like what to be aware of. So I definitely recommend sending your doctor a message online saying that you're traveling on these certain dates. They were even able to fit me in like 2 days before I traveled. So that was really convenient to like have peace of mind when I was traveling, that I would be prepared for all possible scenarios. One of the biggest questions that I got was, did I feel safe traveling as a woman in India? Now, granted, my experience is very unique. I was traveling with the State Department of India for a project they were doing about promoting American tourism to India, and so we were very closely taken care of. So we had our guides with us the whole time that were always keeping an eye on us. A lot of times we had police escorts with us at these like larger monuments like the Taj Mahal and Charminar. And so I felt safe because of the group we were with. I would not personally solo travel India as a woman. I know people who have and have been fine, but I personally would not recommend it. When we would go to dinners with Indian locals, like that was one of the first questions that the women would ask us is, did we feel safe? And so even that question, like coming from a woman who is Indian and lives in India, like was a little jarring. And I would always ask, like, you know, have you always felt safe here? And they've always kind of said, like, the biggest thing that they wanted to express to us was the importance of modesty in that culture. Keeping your shoulders covered as much as possible. You do get away with a lot being a foreigner. Like, you're not necessarily required to stick to those guidelines, but it is, one, respect for the culture, and two, like, will help you blend in a little bit better. So I think that was an important part of, like, layers and having, like, a little top that was breezy but I was comfortable in. There was only one area that they told us to keep our stuff close in, and that was at the market outside of the Charminar monument in Hyderabad. It's kind of like if I was to go to the Eiffel Tower in Paris, like, of course I'm going to keep my stuff close to me. Like, I know that this is a huge tourist attraction and people aren't paying attention, and I would say it's the same as if you're traveling to any other major city. We did have one of the like men in our group that almost got pickpocketed at this monument. That was the only place that they were like a little bit worried because it's very crowded, very loud. The market vendors are kind of like up in your space trying to get you to buy things. And so it's very easy to like let people encroach on your space and your personal belongings. So other than that, I think it was great. I didn't feel like it was any different than traveling to another large major city. With that, though, I will say, like, as a woman, I think you have to be extra aware of utilizing your right to say no. I had a lot of people, our whole group had a lot of people coming up to, like, say hi and take photos of us, like, people that we didn't know, strangers, just that, like, were at the monuments that we were at, like, at the Agra Fort, Taj Mahal, Humayun's tomb. Like, it was very overwhelming. When I lived in China, it was very common for people to also ask to take our photo there. There's a lot of instances in which you might be the first white person that they've ever seen in person. You might be the first American that they've met and they've gotten to say hi to. You might be the only opportunity that they have to take a photo with an American. So people will ask you to take photos with them, but you are allowed to say no. I said yes to taking photos with little kids because it's, you know, it's a big moment for them. It's exciting. I did say no to all of the older men that would ask because I don't know what's happening with that photo. I don't know these people and it makes me feel uncomfortable. It's meant to be like an exciting thing. It's a sweet thing that they want to talk and say hi to you, and that's great. But you are allowed to say no, and you should utilize your right to say no. So that's my biggest thing. Another question that I got a lot was, how was the food? Indian food is just incredible, and when you're in the country, it's even better. I loved it so much. For food safety purposes, we mostly ate in the hotels that we were staying at. They had incredible buffet options that had a lot of Indian street food options that you could have in the hotel, where you can trust the water, you can trust the cooking staff, you can trust the utensils and the quality in which it's being prepared. Some of my standout favorites were Hyderabad biryani, garlic naan with every meal, of course, and beef ularithayu. I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry. It's a traditional beef dish of Kerala. We even got to have a traditional Kerala meal that was served on banana leaves while we were on a riverboat cruise with Spice Routes luxury boat cruises. It was so cool to see how everything worked together, and you could just like roll your rice and your meats and your pickled items into a little ball and just see like how everything worked together. It was such a cool experience, and everyone was so kind to show us what paired with what and what was the best combination. It was one of my highlights of the entire trip for sure. I loved how diverse the foods were and that India loves their sweet treats as much as Americans do. There were always a ton of vegetarian options and a selection of familiar foods like yellow curry, tikka masala, and even dal. If you weren't feeling super adventurous in the moment, you had a selection of foods that you would typically see in America. We did have a really cool meal at our hotel in New Delhi called Le Meridian. That was a culinary tour of India that featured foods from every state. So even though we didn't get to visit all of them, we still got to try their specialty foods. I would 100% recommend this. Next question is, what were the best things to do and see in each of the cities we were in? In Hyderabad, the standout for me was Golconda Fort. It's the ancient beginnings, 13th century beginnings of India and Hyderabad and the city, and was actually the home to the medieval diamond trade, which was really cool. It's got stunning views of the city, 360 degrees. I think there were 300 something stairs to go from the entrance all the way up to the top. It was really, really, really neat. It's one of the few heritage sites where you can still step on original stones and be part of the full structure. One of the coolest parts of this stop was that you can clap at the entrance, and you can hear that clap almost a full kilometer away at the top of the fort, which was used as a defense strategy. So you would know when an enemy was coming before they'd even make it partially up the hill. And so that was a really neat opportunity to see those ancient defense strategies and just how the fort was built, how it's still standing this many centuries later. Next up is Kochi. It was my absolute favorite of the three. I was so excited looking at photos of Kerala, and oh my gosh, it's the most gorgeous, like tropical, natural, incredible space. The riverboat cruise and the traditional Kerala meal was probably my favorite. It was just so cool to see how the waterways of the state work to transport people through new initiatives like electric riverboats, and to get to see the old town areas. They have an area that's really ancient part of the city called Jewtown, and Vasco da Gama is actually buried there, one of the like Spanish explorers. So you see a lot of like Spanish, Dutch influence there as the area was passed back and forth between those different explorers and part of the spice trade and industry development of India. My favorite part of New Delhi, I have to say, it's the Taj Mahal. I know that's predictable, but I was not expecting it to be as absolutely insane as it was, like in the coolest way. I thought prior to going that it had kind of like lost some of its sparkle for like, you know, seeing it in movies and on TV and in the history books. Like, you have heard about this monument your whole life, you know the history of it, but being there in person and seeing the sheer scale of this monument was just like awe-inspiring, to say the least. I cannot believe that they formed that monument with hand tools. It was the coolest thing to be part of that monument and get to touch those stones that were touched centuries ago. The Taj Mahal was mind-blowing. Last question is travel tips for first-timers. I've got 5 travel tips for you if it's your first time flying to India. 1 is don't fly Air India if at all possible. They are notoriously a poor airline. The food was fine, the staff was fine, but there's so many better airlines like Emirates that are flying to and from India every single day. If you can get on an Emirates flight or a United flight, do it. I'll link my videos reviewing the food and experience on Air India so you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. The key is that everyone in economy had a broken TV for the entire 14-hour flight, so that was fun. Number 2 is bring any medications that you might need along with you. I'm talking be prepared for all possibilities. Advil, anti-diarrheal pills, cold medicine, Tums, probiotics, and even cough drops for pollution were really helpful for us. I used Advil a couple of times for like heat especially. I was chugging water, but there were 2 days that it was just so hot and overwhelming that like water was just going in me, out of me, in me, out of me. And so the Advil helped kind of like hold me over and also helped adjust to the time zone. Number 3 is, if at all possible, visit Taj Mahal on a weekday or a day after a holiday. We happened to go the day after a holiday, and because everyone was back to work and everything, there were very few people there. It was very surprising. Also, highly recommend upgrading your ticket to the top tier so that you can go in all the special areas. It's much more calm and you can see a lot of like really good areas and get a lot of good photos and videos from those points that have a slightly higher entry fee. Number 4 is, if you're planning on traveling to India alone, I would highly, highly, highly recommend traveling with a group like Kontiki or Intrepid Travel, who often host group trips to India that will make you feel a little bit more comfortable. It'll be a little bit more scheduled where you've got a guide, you've got a group with you, and so you've got that kind of safety net around you. And I mean, bonus, you can make friends while you travel. They also take care of all of your hotel bookings and all of that. I think it's absolutely worth having a hassle-free travel experience to go with a group. Number 5 is about food safety. This is all from the physician's assistant that I saw before I left. So if your physician's assistant says something else, go with that. But this is what they told me. 1, no water that is not bottled. Bottled water only. Number 2 is no ice. Hotels are much more particular about their water quality and filtering everything and making sure it's all okay. The other thing that they told me was no fruit with rinds. Bananas are fine because they're enclosed in that, but things like apples, pears, that kind of stuff, you don't know the water quality, you don't know the soil quality, don't eat it. Lastly, all of your veggies and meats must be boiled or cooked. So rice, always okay. Make sure that the meat is cooked through in a stew or a tikka, and veggies too. Don't eat raw veggies. They've all got the outside of them, like lettuce especially. Don't mess with the lettuce unless you feel like you have a stomach of steel and water quality doesn't matter to you. Don't eat the lettuce. I leaned on the side of like extra caution to make sure that I could do this entire 10-day trip and feel good. So I was being extra careful. You might not need to be. All right, that's a wrap on my India adventure. I hope this gave you a real feel for the vibrant energy of India and specifically of the cities of Hyderabad, Kochi, and Delhi. From the history-packed Golconda Fort to the traditional Kerala banana leaf meal, India was so full of surprises and unforgettable moments for me. If you're thinking about visiting, definitely add these cities to your list, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along for more travel tips and adventures coming your way. Stay tuned.